Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, welcome everybody. Scott Luton right here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Hey, on today's episode, we're going to be talking with a technology thought leader, taking a deep dive into his journey and his professional background, as well as some of his point of view and expertise on what we're seeing, not just across the technology landscape, but the entrepreneurial landscape as well. So don't miss this entertaining and informative discussion we'll be having here today. A quick programming note before we get started. If you enjoy this conversation, hey, make sure you find Supply Chain Now wherever you get your podcasts from and click subscribe so you don't miss conversations just like this one. All right, special guest here today. I want to introduce my friend. So our featured guest has built and enabled digital transformation programs around the world. He's held leadership positions at a few of the biggest, most recognizable technology platforms that many in industry work and depend on. In fact, our guest has worked with more than 50 Fortune 1000 companies in a wide variety of capacities, including advisory positions. He's also very well connected in the Silicon Valley startup and VC community, having advised many startups on how to break through to the next level. So please join me in welcoming Sarbjeet Johal. Sarbjeet, good afternoon. How you doing?
Scott, doing good. Thanks. That was a very flattering introduction.
Well, hey, I follow you across social media. I keep my finger on the pulse of what you're doing, and you are a mover and shaker, and you keep it real, which I really admire in social.
It's all because of friends like you, and they keep me honest, and we talk offline as well. Hey, how I'm doing, and we give feedback to each other, very candid feedback. You know, I seek that and I give it. So I think that keeps us honest and more like natural, relatable. Yeah, it's fun. Actually, I'm having fun.
It's a blast, and it makes us better, right?
Yeah.
Feedback. I've got a dear friend, Sarbjeet, Phil Addison with Art of Procurement, that taught me something, or I stole this phrase from him. Feedback is a blessing. Feedback is a blessing. So just remember that as you're getting maybe a lot of feedback from one person in particular, it is a blessing indeed, right?
Yeah, actually, it takes courage to tell the truth, actually, and most of the time. And truth sometimes is kind of not that, sweet pill, if you will. Sometimes it's like, hey, but you want to be nice, you want to be respectful, and you can tell when somebody is telling you the truth for you to improve in certain areas, and then are they trying to help you, or they're trying to be mean and stuff like that. So we can easily as a human being kind of sniff that out.
Yes.
And always appreciate somebody is taking that time to tell you about, they are giving feedback, their time is valuable, right? So
Agreed.
Always appreciate that.
Well said. All right. So Sarbjeet, before we get into some of some of your hardcore expertise when it comes to technology, cloud, digital transformation, and startup stuff, let's get to know you a little better. So Sarbjeet, tell us, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small village in India, northern state called Punjab, and I was in a small village. And yeah, very simple life. I belong to a farming family. My father went to school till the fourth grade. My mom dropped out of second grade. So my parents are not educated, as we call education these days, but I think they're educated, but they're less schooled, if you will. Schooling and education are two different things. I always say that. That's where I grew up. And my aunt used to live in Birmingham in England, and they used to visit us very early when I was little. So that had some impact on me, and a lot of a lot
Love
of
that.
other sort of things happening around me in that small setting, which shaped my thinking and brought me
Let's
where I am today.
so let's talk more about that. So obviously your mom and dad, but also your aunt played a big role in your upbringing. What's a couple lessons learned that they instilled in you, Sarbjeet?
I think uh, belonging to a farming family, it teaches you about patience. You know, you wait for the crop to go to the harvest sort of season for 6 months, and you're putting all that effort, and then you're waiting and waiting, and you're nurturing that stuff, right? So in tech, in our industry, we talk about, you know, hunters and farmers and people who grow stuff and people who hunt and stuff like that. So I can relate to it. I've lived that world. So that was one, having patience and hard work, and just being very sincere in your dealings. So like always thinking like wherever you go, whatever you do, you think you're doing it for yourself. It's not like you're doing somebody a favor.
Right.
So if you do a good job, you will look good. If you do a bad job, you will look bad. So that kind of thinking was instilled from the early on, and especially from my mom. My dad was busy as a typical male figure during those times, but mom was more interactive with us. Yeah,
Mm. And your aunt that would visit from Birmingham, England, that
yeah.
what does she? What knowledge or insight does she bring you? And does she ever bring any gifts with for you from England?
Yeah, I whenever I think about those gifts, I like my smiles go up. Yeah, she used to bring clothes for us because we being in a village. If I showed you a photo, I actually have a photo when I was I think maybe 3 4 years old. You were like, it's like we are from like Stone Age or something, people, right? Like in a village. But she will bring more like modern Western clothes, sometimes like suits of our little kids, like the jacket, and they were very nice looking suits. Like you look like a little old man, if you will, gentleman. And I will wear that to my high school and elementary, and then I will stand out, and I'll feel special. So, and also along with that, what now as I have gotten older, I can look back. She brought a lot of thinking and ideas with her, which were more important than the gifts. The gifts looked better back then, but ideas look more important than gifts now. So, like how people live in England, our girls have the same power for getting education, all that stuff. Thinking she brought in, and better sanitation for us in village. Like we were not really doing that great, because everybody else around was like that, and yeah, it improved our thinking level, and living standard in many ways. Yeah.
Wow. So I want to touch on one more thing about you were telling me pre-show about athletics in India.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this we're recording today's episode. It'll be released in a few weeks. So this news will be a few weeks old by the time we release this episode. But India's field hockey team just medaled in the Olympic Games. And so give us a little, you were sharing a little bit of inside track history on that. Tell us more.
Oh yeah, yeah. As I told you, I'm from this northern state, Punjab. It's called bread basket of India. It's like California of India, if you will, Punjab. And then all these farming families, their kids played hockey, field hockey, and field hockey was it's still India's national game, by the way. So they won bunch of gold medals in Olympics starting I think in 60s, 1960 and onwards, right? And then they lost that touch, and since 1980 they haven't actually, they won the most golds in field hockey
All
uh,
time.
of all time. Like no other country has won 8 golds so far. But then they fell off the grid. They couldn't even qualify for Olympics, and finally, after 41 years, they got a bronze medal. And a big portion of that team is from our state. India has 27 states, I think. These days they keep changing number. 20 it used to be 25. So it's a pretty big country, right? But those players, for being from that area, it felt like our kids or our younger brothers won that. And then also the women's team also made it to semifinals
Wow.
as well.
Outstanding.
So yeah, it
It's kind
was
of like
very proud moment.
it sounds like it. It sounds like the Cubs when they finally won the World Series a few years back, and after all that history.
Yeah.
But to have a legendary program like the India field hockey team that gold medals, the most ever all time, and they go through that drought period, you should be celebrating these recent wins, especially in these challenging set of circumstances. So that's good news to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Great news.
okay, one final question, and then we'll get into the heavier lifting. So
Mm-hmm.
if we were to poll your aunt and folk and parents and who you grew up with and who you since then who you work with, what is one attribute or trait that they would say, yes, that is definitely Sarbjeet?
I don't know. It's hard to talk about yourself in, I think, a positive note, but I think they will say that he's there when you need him. So that I think they will say, and I'm always there for my friends and family. Yeah, they just need to. I just need to know that there's a need and I'm there.
Love that. In fact, I love some of you're such a great follow on social, in particular Twitter. I've learned a ton from what you've shared there. And I love the pictures, of course, in this era where, all events are digital. And so a lot of folks have been swapping images of events in the days gone past. And looks like y'all had a blast and you were certainly there in the thick of things, Sarbjeet. I love that. Okay. So one of the things I was looking forward to as part of this conversation, you've appeared with us on the Supply Chain Buzz, which is every Monday at 12 noon, but we couldn't take in that interview, take a deeper dive into your journey. Cause you've worked with a ton of highly recognizable big brand companies and startups and all points in between. So if you could, instead of going position by position, which I bet
Yeah.
would be fascinating, but for the sake of time, share a couple of positions that really helped shape your worldview as you were navigating through your professional journey.
Yeah, I my worldview. That's a great question. I think my worldview is informed from my upbringing, number one, number two, my education, number three, my work experience, right? So, upbringing from being from a rural area, so I keep that in mind. There's a big portion of the world lives in rural areas. So when we talk about diversity, it's not only the diversity by race or gender or color, it's also by economic conditions and also by like a metro to the like the small town, people needs to be
Right.
brought into the sort of game, if you will. So that's one side of things, and the second is my education. I'm economics major, so that informs me in my decision making and forming my worldview of like being a systems thinker. I sort of mix that with from technology side to the economics of things and
It's a
economics of
dangerous
technology.
mix, Sarbjeet.
Yeah,
It's a dangerous mix.
it's a dangerous mix. Actually, I think it's a very cool mix. Actually, it makes a good recipe for putting your ideas and your narratives out there. So the third thing is, of course, my work experience, right? Um, I will mention a couple of things. Like one is that when I was after a master's, I was pursuing my PhD degree, and I was in Chandigarh, which is capital of Punjab state here in India, and I used to work with a think tank. That working with a think tank where everybody else was PhD and you were pursuing your PhD, it was fascinating. I worked with World Bank advisors, IMF advisors, and many scholars from US, UK, and other countries. They will visit us. We will have all these meetings and publish the research. It was great environment, and that never got out of my mind. The value of research, pre and post programs. Like many times we do studies before we launch something,
Right.
especially when the programs are bigger. You want to make sure that money you're putting in is going to the right direction, and many times you want to analyze what you did and were you successful. If you were not, what were the lessons learned and all this stuff. So the value of those analysis, I think it stuck to me. And during my work career, I've worked with the only company I have worked with which was in sort of non-tech in a certain way, was Visa International.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my career has been with big tech giants like VMware, EMC, and Rackspace and Oracle and PeopleSoft. I worked there as well, and a company called Commerce One. That actually was one of my best 10 years.
Which one
I,
was which one?
Commerce One. Commerce One, a B2B darling during .com days. Many lessons learned there. like I usually say, like, you go to companies, some companies you will go to in your career, you will learn what to do, and there are many companies you will go to and you will learn more of what not to do, and that's equally important. I think it's more important to know what not to do than what to do. So uh, I'll stop it there. I can keep going.
That's a litany of some of the who's list on big technology players. So what's one thing, if I could follow up really quick, because I think you can learn as much, if not more, on what not to do
Yeah.
as you can when folks tell you what you should do. What during those corporate positions, during those big tech positions,
Mhm.
was there what was your chief learning of what not to do as a leader?
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's easy for me actually. I've seen that happen like two times in my career with two of my companies I worked with. The one thing you don't want to do is like change the narrative on the fly. It confuses the heck out of the market, and people will shun you as a customer, even if they love you. Your people, they will say like, these people don't know what they're doing, right? So that happened at Commerce One. We changed the direction. Like you're going at certain speed, like if you when you're driving, you always use analogies. You're driving fast, and then you take a 90-degree turn. What happens?
You
You
crash,
flip, you crash, right? So you
right?
crash. People crash when they take turns at high speed. So you got to slow down. You got to give the ample time to the market to digest that you're pivoting and stuff like that. And you don't want to piss off your customers who love your what you used to do. I also usually use the analogy of like a restaurant, right? Use food analogies and medicine analogies in my talks. Like just imagine there's a restaurant in a city like you live in, and let's say they're known for Mexican food, and it's a Mexican restaurant, right? And they're known, and all of a sudden they put a board on front in front of their building and in the newspaper locally and on digital these days, like, oh, we do best sushi, right? Guess what happens, right?
Right.
People who like sushi, they're not going to go there because oh no, they will say, no, these people are not sushi people. They are known for Mexican food, and I don't want to go there, right? And people who used to come to you, they will get equally confused. It's like, what? Like they must have hired new chefs, and they are not doing the what they used to do. I'm not going to go there.
Right.
So it confuses the heck out of the market, and don't change the messaging, the narrative. You have to control your narrative. You have to control your story. You are in charge of that.
I love that because confused buyers don't
Yes.
become completed buyers that make the transaction oftentimes. So that's a wonderful tip. So take your time. Words matter. Your message, your positioning matter. Do it in a deliberate and planned out manner. So
Yeah.
let's talk about digital transformation. So by all accounts, you're a real. I know this phrase, thought leader, gets tossed around everywhere these days, but you're the real deal, Holyfield, right? Especially when it comes to digital transformation, cloud, um, technology, as you've already spoken towards. Let's talk about digital transformation right now, because whether you like it or not, whether you're actively engaged in transforming your business digitally or not, you're going through it. It's just
Yeah.
how much progress you're making, or lack thereof. So, two part question here. So first off, what have you seen? What one or two things have you seen companies get right when it comes to digital transformation? And on the flip side, what's those one or two things that some companies just can't stop doing, the mistakes they're making when it comes to their DT strategy?
Yeah, I think those are loaded questions. They're sort of litany of factors. The one thing which the successful companies who are digitally transforming, they're getting it right, is the rate of experimentation, or what I usually call it, A/B testing on their business models, on their product, how they create stuff, how they market it, how they sell it. So like a they handle it holistically, right? Not just one part of it, right? And they are bolder in their vision as well, and their senior leadership is on board. it's not like half-hearted sort of approach they take. They they announce it, but at the same time they make that change in smaller chunks. It sort of jibes well with what earlier said, that what the approach is, that they don't take sharp turns, right? So they create digital twins. They don't disturb their existing customers. At the same time, they give them the choice to move to the newer way of doing things. And it takes courage, it takes investment, it takes patience, um, it takes talent. That is the key. And good leaders always hire the best talent, I believe.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that, and they're engaged, and it's a
Oh, yeah.
priority for them.
Mhm.
What I'm hearing, I love that. So on the flip side, beyond the the reverses of some of those things you've shared, what are some of the other mistakes that you're seeing companies make when it comes to digital transformation?
I think the big mistakes on the flip side is like anybody who tries to do a big bang approach, they usually, like most often than not, they fail. So you can't have like, okay, like we're going to change everything within the next 3 or 4 years. You can't just do big bang approach. You want to change everything, but you want to like take smaller bites. I usually say it's age of micro consumption, and that means it's age of micro change, right? And it's micro age of micro production as well. As if you're when you're a supplier, you want to give um, change to your organization in very smaller chunks, and also you want to change the way your organizations are laid out. And people, when they don't change their organizational change sort of layout, and they're looking for change, it won't happen. There's a thing called Conway's law, and you can look it up. And Conway's law actually says that in technical, so engineering focused organizations, what you produce, that outcome will mimic almost like your organizational structure. If your org is like very fat kind of thing, you will produce that kind of those kind of products and or services, like very monolithic in nature. If your organizations are lean, you will create lean, like microservices kind of things, or smaller. You will release smaller things at a time. And and I'm a big fan of micro consumption, sort of, so that narrative. I talk about it every time I talk to anybody. I sprinkle that in there because I think somebody will gravitate to this idea, and I know people who are doing it. I think Amazon has mastered the game. Microsoft has copied that from them. They used to be very very good at that, and then they lost the touch. Microsoft for a while, and then they're gravitating towards that. So the whole idea is, for example, when you look at AWS, right, their
Right.
cloud services,
Yep.
they release like one little tiny service every, let's say 6 days or 8 days, whatever that is. And in a year, they end up releasing a lot more than their competitors, but it's very digestible.
Right.
As a developer, as an architect, I can learn that thing, a small thing, I can weave that into my day-to-day stuff, right?
Right.
As compared to another vendor, their competitor, for example, I will not name the names because I'll be shaming them. And they will release like 30 things, every 3 months, or
Right.
or 60 things every 6 months, and it's monolithic in nature. People go like, look, I don't know what to do with this. I don't have time to read all your release notes and this and that. So
Right.
yeah, it's
One bite, one step at a time
yes,
is
yes.
a big best practice. I'd also add, not from a technology standpoint, but from a continuous improvement standpoint, of course, that incremental advancement and gains. GE was famous for that back in the traditional GE days, I'll call it. Don't give me 25 points, from year to year, but give me that steady drumbeat of 2 to 3 points of improvement. And I love how you apply that to technology gains, and that's some of the good things you're doing that you're seeing leaders do when it comes to digital transformation. Because when I think about big massive projects and the non one byte here, one byte there,
Hmm.
I think of these 127 slide PowerPoint
Wow.
presentations and long emails about how to and step by step, 3,000 steps. Who who does have time for that on top of what they're trying to get done in their day to day? So I love that, Sarbjeet.
Yeah, actually, Scott, I'm just elaborating a little bit
Yeah,
on that because it's very important. I think it's that in your communication as well, you want to release that in micro chunks as well. So that is very important. Your marketing has to be done in smaller chunks as well. Yes, you want to have a bigger umbrella sort of stream, if you will, but you people don't have attention for to listen to read a white paper these days, or read like a long blog. Just be quick and respect their time and come to the point very quickly, and it just that's what works. And be honest, and also be humble. When you make a mistake as a brand, own it. Those are the things which are, I think, super important.
I love that. I may be in trouble in this succinct era that we're living in, Sarbjeet, but that's okay. Hey, we lead into it and embrace it.
Hmm.
I want to shift gears. So as a founder and entrepreneur, I love a lot of the thought leadership and the comments and the conversations you drive out there, especially including what you do to engage and support and invest in the entrepreneurs out there in your market that you live in on the West Coast near Fremont. Um, so I want to dive into that more. So we're going to shift gears from digital transformation to talking more about Sarbjeet, the startup advisor, investor, the startup whisperer, so to speak. So what are whether it's some of the startups you're involved in or some of the startups that you're admiring from afar, what are some that's impressed you and really hit your radar here lately?
Yeah, actually, I got that bug when I was working at Rackspace. I used to work with 500 startups incubator, which is number two incubator in the Bay Area after Y Combinator, right? So Y Combinator is number one. They go sort of neck to neck with Techstars. Techstars is nationwide. It's funny enough, they don't have any presence in the Bay Area. We have plug and play, and we have hundreds of incubators here in the Bay Area, but these two are the main. Y Combinator and 500 Startups. So I got that bug from there because we had a marketing program with them, and I used to go to demo days, and I said, oh my God, there's two people coming from a different country some many times, and just college graduates. They get together and cook something up and launch it out there. No fear. They travel thousands of miles and sometimes get special visas to come here to start these companies. And I saw like Walmarts of the world and PayPal's of the world sitting in the audience, and many times they will acquire this company, what we usually call talent acquisition. Two young lads, I'll give you an example. They um, they built a piece of software which digitizes your receipts, and not McDonald's, Walmart people were sitting in the audience on demo day. They acquired their company right that day when they saw that idea. Um, uh, and they pay them, I think, between $1 and $2 million, and for the young kids, it's a lot of money. Like they just started 6 months back.
Right.
So Walmart said that we will save, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars they spend every month on the paper to print the receipts, right? So because volume dictates the savings, if you will. And that was just one example, but it happened all the time. So I wanted to do that in East Bay, where I live on this side of the bay. And when I got an opportunity, I invested money into a new incubator called Batchery, and we opened that next to UC Berkeley, uh, 2 blocks away, and brought it to life. And that incubator has taken 100 plus startups through the program so far.
Okay. And
I'm
how old is
advisor
the
there.
battery
How old is the
roughly?
battery? Yeah, battery is I think 7, 8 years old now. Yeah, 7, 8 years old. Um, it was a baby idea, and then we got together and put money into it and brought it to life. And then I started interacting with VC community and the academia, being close to UC Berkeley, and then the other people from other side of the Bay, from Stanford and other schools will come there, professors and all that. The thing, the one actually, just a side note here, is that I usually talk about this thing that the gap between what we teach in academia and what we practice in industry is there, a big gap, and that gap is different in different geographies. In the Bay Area, that gap is very narrow. That's why Bay Area is Bay Area, because we are intermingled like this, especially Stanford. Like all Google came from Stanford, and all
Right.
these big companies.
Founders of
And
Instagram, I think it met at Stanford.
yeah, a lot of stuff came from Stanford, and we know that like other companies come from East Coast schools as well. Those people. Mark Zuckerberg moved from Harvard to here to do stuff, and got other Stanford people in there. So I think that it's a. I always talk about this proximity. Proximity is very important. Proximity, your physical proximity, and your thought proximity. That your cultural proximity is very important, and you want to leverage that. So I'm going into tangent here. I know you asked me like what areas I'm
It's
very
okay.
passionate about in startups, and I am passionate about like all these new breed of startups which are working on the AI and and in AI ops, what they call it, because I traverse in cloud area a lot.
Right.
That's my thing, if you will. So any company which is trying to take the automation to the next level using the machine learning, right? So things are self-correcting and self-managing and self-scaling. So that we're going there, and there's a lot of investment going into those areas, and I'm fascinated by those startups. And from the startups I advise, uh, some of them are in this area, some are not. Some are like just trying to solve the traditional, problems
Right.
and operational problems of your efficiency kind of related startups. Um,
Well,
but
going back, speaking on AI, if I can interject for a second
Mhm.
here, one of my favorite aspects of our last conversation with you and my typical co-host Greg White, partner in
Yeah, he's
crime.
awesome.
Man, when y'all got together and we're
Actually,
talking about real artificial intelligence and versus all the labels and the Me Too's that are
oh
out
yeah, yeah,
there,
yeah. Oh
it
yeah,
really was fascinating.
yeah.
Speak to that for a second, because that you hear the artificial intelligence AI that's out there. Marketing professionals, hey, more power to them. They really embrace that and slap that label and everything. But speak to that for a second, because I think some of the more powerful platforms, companies, startups, you name it, that really enables true AI driven technology. Those are ones moving the needle versus it being a marketing component. Speak to that for a second, if you would, Sarbjeet.
Yeah, I think AI, even though AI is very old term, people say that, oh, we have been doing this from since 60s and 70s and all that stuff. But I think we're just in the very early stages of it, right? And in, in many times, like something can be there, but it cannot take off because there's things which we need a support structure around everything. You can build a rocket at home, but you can't launch at home. You need a launch pad, right?
Right.
So you need all kind of bells and whistles, like the pad and safety and all that, regulations in many cases in a few industries. So long story short, I think the convergence of technology is what makes something go like start flying very fast. And I think it's a convergence of like faster compute, better networks, faster storage, and on top of that, on the software side, the once we got the hold of REST APIs, like we tried different things. We tried Corba, we tried IIOP. People who are very technical, they will know what I'm talking about. We tried DCOM from Microsoft for gluing things together, right? The digital glue was not there till we got REST APIs, and REST is everywhere now, and I strongly believe in that. So answering your question, I think you have to think of AI as augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. I always say that it's just augmentation of human intelligence. There's no way we can replace the human intelligence with the machines trained by data. Not, we are not near that and anywhere near that right now. because data is after the fact thing. We know that, right? And we can predict things as humans. And I usually say that a smartest system is the one which can take into account most number of variables while making a decision, or most number of parameters, if you will. If you're a coder, you understand that when you write a function, you pass the parameters to it, right? And you
Yeah, I
do
remember
something with
that.
it. You know, remember that? Okay.
Sarbjeet, I started in computer science in college, working
Awesome.
with C++ and compilers and the
Wow.
iterative aspects of learning how to do that. And I found out quickly that that was not my gift in life. So you took me back for a second to those painful
Yeah.
first semesters or two learning C++. But anyway, I digress.
Remember the pointer to the pointer to the pointer. Remember those discussions? What the fuck? What is it? You know. So, and that's why actually abstraction is our friend in software, in systems, actually in general, but in software in particular. And we abstracted C with C++, right? On that note, I took a picture with the C++ founder, Banerjee. I can never say his name right. At here in Mentor Graphics in '95. Actually, I still have that picture here with me.
Awesome.
So I'm a
Well,
geek.
well, I saw, speaking of pictures, famous pictures, I saw a picture of you, I believe at Twitter's headquarters,
Yeah, I went there.
right?
Yes,
That's got to
yes.
be pretty cool. Was that a visit, or did y'all do some work together, or what?
No, my neighbor actually he works there. Okay, here in Silicon Valley, our neighbors, we don't make many times we don't know their names. Like we don't have to remember their names. We'll say that's Google, that's Cisco, that's Google, like Facebook, that's Twitter. So
Oh, love it.
yeah,
Love it.
I went for lunch with my buddy there, and I know like quite a few people there. And at Facebook as well, I know a bunch of people there. It's like you can't avoid it. Living here for 25 years, these companies are born after that. So a
Right.
bunch of people I know, they work there. Yes. Yeah.
Well, so continue now on this going, kind of getting back onto the startup segment here. So clearly you're an advisor. You've been, some of your professional career has been with some the early stage companies. You were an investor. Clearly, you have helped found a incubator to help many startups called, the battery that you mentioned. So 2 points here.
Hmm.
What do you look for when it comes to investment as, personally as Sarbjeet, but then also if you could give some advice to some of the founders listening that may be getting ready for, the funding rounds or getting ready for their pitches or what have you. So share some advice if you would.
Yeah. Your question, two questions are there, sort of flip side of the coin, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
So when, as an investor, you're looking, the number one thing you're looking for is the team. And then second is the number after that is the idea. Of course the idea is important as well, or their business model and all that stuff. Why team? Because if a good team can pivot on ideas, right? A bad team with good idea is not a good thing
Mm,
for investment, because they will be stubborn, they will not pivot. And yeah, so you want to make sure that people are driven, they are passionate about solving a problem, they are not like get rich quick kind of, they're not in it to just think like I'll make millions of dollars and retire or something,
right.
or do something else with it. So you want people who think long term, and they are there to solve a problem. And many times you want to invest in people who have had that problem themselves, or their proximity to the problem is very very close, if you will. They were in the close proximity of the problem, if you will.
Mhm.
So that's the main thing, and we can talk about other factors some other time. But that's the top of the sort of decision
Key
making.
priority. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Team, idea, and timing is important as well. So those three things there. But on the other side, when you are a founder, right? The key is you want most probably you should get a co-founder. Lone person is they have handicap. We all have our blind spots, and you should get somebody to work with you. And then because it will kill your blind spots, number one. Number two is like when you go for investment dollars, many times these startups do, and they will take you seriously. It's hard to fund the lone founders. And when you're seeking money, try to seek the smart money rather than just plain money, So try to go to people who can add value to your operations. They know ins and outs of your domain, your vertical, what area you are in. So try to get the smart money, even if it's a little more expensive. Before you get the smart money, make sure you have some advisors on your side from that industry what you're trying to work in. That goes a long way actually, and you can uh, master the art. Actually, master the art of ask. You can get some good advisors on your side. For example, if you're in media and entertainment, doing a startup in media and entertainment, streaming or something, get somebody from Hollywood. Seriously, you can just
Right.
ask like, hey, can you give us like you know 5 hours a month or 2 hours every month? We want to pick your brain and we'll highlight you, and then we value you, and then give them some part of the company, some shares, something they need to. And if you don't know them directly, try to find out a way to get to them somehow. So I think you want to, it's not that you want celebrities in there or something, it's not like that. You want the know-how of that industry, like the gachos, the deep down people who have done work in that
Right.
industry. You want that, it's because without that you will be kind of shooting in the dark kind of thing.
Yes, I love that. So don't so to recap two key points I heard there. Number one, don't just take money.
Yeah,
Be very deliberate of finding the smart money, folks that
yeah,
don't only bring the financial wherewithal to the table, but the know-how, the value, coaching, mentoring, skill sets, you name it. And then the second thing that I heard you say there, Sarbjeet, that I love is be bold.
yeah,
If there's a big name, small name, all points in between, that is a bona fide and a demonstrative leader in what you're doing, reach out, get
yeah.
creative of how you can bring that individual into the fold to help you move faster and more successful. So I love that. Bold and fearless, Sarbjeet.
Yeah, and let me add you two more things, which are, I think, actually, this is one of my areas where I'm very passionate about. You can tell me. So one is that you need a launch pad, as I said earlier. You can build anything anywhere, but to launch it, you need certain things in place, right? So don't shy away from incubators or industry consortiums and stuff like that. Don't be afraid of just giving piece of the pie or spending some money uh, to belong to a bigger sort of a platform which will highlight you, which can make you grow, like let's say if not 100x, a 10x faster rate than what you will grow otherwise,
Right.
right? So I think that's very important. So um,
That's a big point.
yeah, and then
Sometimes
and
resources are right up under your nose, right?
exactly. And then B2B and B2C, there are two different animals when we are talking about the startups, right? Especially from go-to-market strategy point of view, which is very important. Go-to-market strategy is super important, especially for both B2C and B2B, but especially for B2B. Perhaps I'm biased there because I work in that sort of environment. Like I have lived that world. Like it's different. How there are different techniques to go to market. In B2B, there's a vendor size sort of concern or objection when you're trying to sell something to a company, especially if you're in high tech B2B. The people will not entertain you. Like, why will I buy some key component of my system from you? You can go bust tomorrow financially, and what will I do? Right? So the vendor size matters. So for that reason, you have to have some partners around you, and alliances, and many times you have to posture yourself, like it's like dating, when young
Right.
people are dating. Let's say, okay, or young or old, doesn't matter. So they're dating, and then they dress up, they go to clubs, and you have to posture yourself in a way that you attract other partners and other alliances
Mm,
towards you, and because that will give you the muscle power so that you can kill that objection of the vendor size. And those
love
were the
that.
two other things I wanted to add. Sorry,
Uh,
sorry,
that
I'm very very elaborate and I just can't stop talking
No, it's
sometimes.
good. This is great insights, and it's not one size. It's never one size fits all. Never
Right,
one
right.
size fits all, and I think it's really important. And don't fool yourself. You can't fool yourself. You're only going to stunt the growth of your startup, or um,
Yeah.
wasted a lot of people's time, money, heartache, and then some. So I love that advice. I want to, as we start to wind down our conversation with Sarbjeet here, one of my favorite questions to ask. We learn so much. So we have so many eureka moments these days. Always, they're timeless. But gosh, in this current age we're getting through, you can have a eureka moment every day, every hour, sometimes. But all of that aside, whether it's a timeless eureka moment for you or a more current one, give us share something that you have that really hit you and made you pause for a second and have that epiphany.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. I wish I could ask this question from so many people I know, and I can learn a lot. So, yeah, for me, actually, one of the things which I recently, not very recently, like almost a year back, which is very recent, knowing my 10-year age, is that um, I found out that the markets are function of information. You know, I in the beginning when I was younger, as I started as a coder, writing software, right?
Yep.
My career, right? When I moved to US in '94, um, even though I was an economics major, I started coding and just wrote a lot of code and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But then I did not appreciate marketing. I thought marketing people are fluffy and they're just polishing things and fooling people, blah blah blah. But I think marketing is marketing and PR are very important function of a modern organization. Um, you have to tell your story. You have to tell why you're doing what you're doing, right? So um, you have to put that information out there. Only then people will value your brand. When I say brand, that can be product brand and or it can be the company brand. It can be even personal brand as well. They will value your brand more based upon the information you give them. And that epiphany moment, actually I got that recently when I was watching an MIT class. By the way, to the viewers who are watching, any lifelong learners, which most of you are, that's why you're watching this. When you're watching this,
Hmm.
um, there's a lot of open courseware from MIT and Harvard and Stanford and all other universities, like um, good schools, if you will. The top-notch teachers are teaching that. For example, Gary Gensler, who was SEC chairman, he taught the crypto at um, MIT
Hmm.
for many years. So you can learn a lot from there. So I was watching this MIT class lecture on financials, right? How the financial industries are formed and blah blah blah. What are the bases behind all these markets? How the markets are made? Um, so I'm an economics junkie, you can tell, right? So I was listening to that, and then that hit me. That professor gave an example um, in the class to the students who were just starting fresh. It was first or second lecture of that class. Man, that hit me very hard. Markets are function of information.
Hmm.
So if I just let me give you an example what he
Yeah.
did. So he wrapped, let's say, okay, okay, I have something in this package, and I will sell it to you. You tell me how much you will pay for this.
Okay.
I will decide if I want to sell it to you. Like, how will you determine the price of this, right? You're
Right.
guessing. You're
I have no
guessing, right?
information. I'm missing
You need
information, right?
some more information, right? So if I people guess many times, especially when you're investing in the stock market and all that stuff, you have less information there, and information has liquidity like money does and all that stuff. Like, we can go into that philosophy talks, but once if I tell you there's some electronic item in there, you have some information. If I tell you there's a smartphone in there, you have some more information.
Right.
But if I tell you, like, you still don't have enough information to price it properly. If I tell you it's iPhone, you have more information, right? If I tell you it's iPhone 12 or whatever, then you have more information. If I tell you it's iPhone 12 and then 120 gigs or something, like you have more. So what I'm trying to say is like more information you put out there about what you do and also why you do it. Like you can say, okay, it's a very well designed product, blah, blah. So all these things, they matter. These are pieces of data which hit you here and help you make decisions. And last time I checked, humans are still making the buying decisions, not machines.
Last time I checked too. I love that, Sarbjeet. Now, who knows? A couple of years from now, we'll have to revisit it. But
No, they do sometimes, like in the supply chain management, like the automated supply chain management and all that stuff. But when it comes to strategic decisions, there's still a lot left to the humans.
right, and a lot of human-led negotiation, value
Yes.
perception, value framing, and positioning, and the art of the deal for sure. So, Sarbjeet, I really, I love spending time with you.
Same here.
I like, you're thinking on a different plane. So many folks can learn so much from you. So I appreciate you touching today on digital transformation, on startup world, and some of the things that founders should be thinking about. Some of the things that investors should be thinking about, frankly. Of course, the Eureka moment, and then going all the way back to the beginning of the interview. I really enjoyed you sharing on your upbringing and some of those special moments and special learnings from your time there with your mother and your father and your aunt from Birmingham, England, back in India. All right, so let's wrap here. Let's make sure folks know how to connect and be able to compare notes with you, Sarbjeet. So, how can folks connect with you?
I sort of live on Twitter. I spilled my gut there. I'm very active there. I'm very responsive there as well. There's no tweet thrown at me. I will like not reply to you. So, and you can DM me, pick my brain to the students of the world, the researchers of the world. I talk to them from like very frequently. And I love collaborating with people. I love the hustlers, people who take risks. And I love your work, by the way, on that note. And
Thank you.
And you're hustling. You're doing great work. I really appreciate from the bottom of my heart. It's not because we are doing this interview. No, even otherwise, I think I've told you even before we spoke. You come across as very humble and very relatable. And nah, yeah,
We're
like,
putting
and anytime
human.
that you put something there, I want to listen to it.
Well,
Then
thank
I
you.
bookmark it, and then when I'm running, I'm listening to it. Yeah,
Hey,
you're a great partner in business as well.
well, thank you. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks so much for all those kind remarks. And I agree. Greg's been a wonderful Greg and Amanda and Clay and the whole team have been
Yeah, whole team is good.
big parts of the journey. But, we are trying to put the human back in humanity. And now
Yes, yeah.
more than ever before, we really need it. So, but it's all about the kindred spirits and folks, the camaraderie and the fellowship as we all are on this journey together, different chapters, different storms, but we're all in it together. And Sarbjeet, I really admire a lot of what you do, how you share that knowledge, your constant engagement, and what you've shared here on this interview with me. So, all right. So folks, make sure you connect with Sarbjeet, connect with him on social. Is there a website that you want to connect, direct people to? We'll put it all in the show notes, by the way, Sarbjeet. Is there for folks to find out more about the battery or anything else you do? Anywhere else you want to point people to?
Yeah, you go to Battery if you're doing startup here in the Bay Area. I'm not very married to any particular incubator, including mine.
Yep.
Try the other one. Try to get into Y Combinator. Try 500 startups. But when you want to pick my brain or see what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and who I'm related to in business world and tech world, look at my LinkedIn. I have a website called sjahal.com, and my email is sjahal@sjahal.com.
Wonderful.
You can email me there. So like if you want to talk to me, I don't think you can miss
They can
me.
find you.
If like you can find me. Actually, I always like people. If you really want to talk to anybody, you can find them. Believe
That's
me,
right.
I think you can.
Well, we're going to make it really easy. We're going to put all of that into the show notes, one click away. Always a pleasure to chat and catch up and learn from Sarbjeet Johal. And Sarbjeet will be back in touch again really soon. So to our
Great.
listeners, though, hopefully you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. I feel like I've earned some kind of degree here, even more important than on paper, a real life degree from my conversation with Sarbjeet. So hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I have. Of course, if you enjoy this, check us out, Supply Chain Now, wherever you get your podcast from. Click subscribe so you don't miss a single conversation. But most importantly, here today, other than what Sarbjeet has shared, which is pure gold, I'm signing off now on behalf of our entire team. Most importantly, do good, give forward, and be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.